Why hello and welcome back to another episode of Voice of the Rings. I am your host and guide, Zollin Ironshield, as always. And today, I have something really fun to talk about here on the blog playlist. This is actually not going to totally lean into Lord of the Rings stuff, but it's more about something that succeeded. An adaptation that happened recently that was really good, and I was never really even a huge fan of, but when I watched it, it was fantastic, and I want to point out a few things about that, and a few things about the genre of that thing. What am I talking about? Well, I'm actually going to talk about the new One Piece adaptation on Netflix, because it was fantastic, and it's kind of being universally loved by all the original fans, as well as new fans that have never seen it before. So, real quick, what is One Piece? Okay, so it's based off a manga series that was made way back in the 90s, I believe? Probably before I was born, actually. I forget what the exact date is when he started the manga, and then kind of blew up into an anime. If you know what an anime is for people here in the US, maybe who don't really know the Japanese stuff as much, that is kind of like a cartoon, all right? But it's a very different thing. So people, if you ever said it was a cartoon to someone who really, they might be a little offended, so just keep that in mind. Anime is the term you should be using. It is a very different thing. And it is based off pirates, okay? So it's a little out there because it's a fantasy world, right? It doesn't have quite the same basis of realism in like physics and stuff as like other fantasies might, like a fantasy, like a medieval fantasy like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, right? It's a little bit more like towards the Marvel series, right? In that feeling of like some people might have superpowers and stuff. There's certain reasons why. I don't want to give you any spoilers, so I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to be very careful not to give you spoilers. So anyway, here is the actual here's what they look like, right? The actors, the 5 main actors of the new thing, they're on all the front things. This isn't a spoiler. So why was it so good? Why did it give me hope for the future of media industry? Okay, so I will not go into we're not going to go into anything political right now, so don't freak out and turn away. This is going to be a really positive perspective, okay? So I'll be very careful how I word things in that way, where it will be fun. This is going to be a positive one because it gave me encouragement for the future. So if any of you know a lot of adaptations, I can't say that word right now for some reason, have been lackluster, to say the least, lately, and a lot of genres that we've really liked, people like the main bulk of fans genres, have been more or less. Some of them have been okay. Some of them have been kind of ruined. Some of them have been really bad, right? That's happened, right? But we're going to do this from a more positive perspective. Why am I so excited about this particular series? Enough so that I'm going to make a blog video about it and talk about the positivity of it on a Lord of the Rings channel, okay? The reason is it's something that I mentioned about the Rings of Power. Okay, so there are parts of the Rings of Power I liked. You can go watch my review videos. We're not going to get into that right now. There's parts that I really didn't like, okay? The parts I didn't like were the things that totally went against the story or completely switched on their head. You have to understand, with any adaptation, I said the word right, any adaptation, you have to think about the fact that you need to realize when you put it from maybe a cartoon or a book or a manga or an anime, and you put it to live action, there are going to be some things that are going to have to be changed, right? And I think they did a good job on this one, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I need to premise this first, though. There has to be some things you have to be willing to be able to change, and they might do something for trying to get new fans. But when you do this as a producer or a group, you need to do it in a way that respects the original one. And maybe you want to do it where it's a slight new twist on it, right? Because you want to have those original fans want to come watch the new one to see a different dimension or a different multiverse version of it. But you don't always have to do that, right? You can respect the thing and follow it pretty closely to the original. Look how Peter Jackson did, okay? The prime example of Lord of the Rings, right? Prime example is that the Lord of the Rings films just were seamless, right? Yes, Tom Bombadil's not in it. Glorfindel's not in it. Another like 30 characters aren't in it. Tons of stuff was cut out. The Barrow Downs, all that stuff out of the books, right? But it doesn't hurt the show, and he still did a respectful job to the show, okay? He didn't take something and just flip it on its face. There's a few things like that in Rings of Power that I did not like. It was just like certain characters, they picked a lot of certain places and names of characters, and then what was written about those characters was just flipped on their face, right? But again, I don't want to go into negativity things. But you know what I'm saying with that, right? It's just like they're like, oh, we're going to do this. Or another thing, without getting political, is that a lot of times nowadays agendas or someone's viewpoint, whoever's the producer, will put something into a story. There's a place for this, okay? Make a new show, right? Make a new TV show. Don't take something that someone already loves that you're promising to make an adaptation of and then change something entirely because, oh, well, we want to completely change that and put in our own view on something, right? We don't think that lines up with our views on life. That's not really what you're doing when you're making an adaptation into live action, right? That's not the goal. If you want to do that, go make a new show, right? There's nothing wrong with that. People will watch that probably. I won't, but people might watch that. But when it comes to this one, they did such a good job of holding true to the original stories in the manga and the anime. Like, they took some things out. So, for example, the one character right here in the, not the very end one, but the next one, in the anime and manga, he's got like a ridiculously long, like Pinocchio nose. They removed that, obviously. I think it was a good decision. But besides that, there's a lot of stuff they kept with these characters that's like identical to the manga. Like Nami, which is the girl on the second to the left over there on their side. She literally looks so much like the original. Okay, like it's so good. And the main character even, they're such good actors, and you can tell they love their parts. That's another really important thing, right? When a character really loves their part. There were several characters, by the way, if we're comparing that to Lord of the Rings, since we're a Lord of the Rings channel. We're going to do a little comparison here. In the Rings of Power, there's some characters, even some of the made-up ones, that you could tell just loved their part and did a really good job, okay? That is absolutely the case. I really thought Elrond did a fantastic job, right? Durin did a good job. You know what I mean? And there's a couple others. I really liked, the guy who turns out to be Sauron, Halbrand, right? And the other H name, the elf, I can't think of his name right now, that was made-up character, he did a really good job too. So there are characters that, that can happen. But the fact that they held true to the source material so well, I think that's something that needs to happen more in these adaptations. They need to realize that, yes, we're going to have to change some things for live action, but what can we keep, right? Let's not just take something and take the name of it and just turn on its face and do the exact opposite, right? Because that's not going to make anyone happy, and it's going to flop, right? But they didn't do that with this. It's so good. It's all about pirates and the adventure of the main character in the middle there, Luffy. And I was not a huge One Piece supporter before watching this Netflix series. I had watched the first 50 episodes, and I've known about it for years because I am in the anime and manga world through high school, and I have a friend who loves this. He's literally watching the episodes that are still coming out of the anime, and they're in the 1,000 now. Okay, they're like 1,050 or something. I don't know where they are right at the time of this video, but by the way, he watched it. I told him, you have to watch this, to my friend Night Chaos. I'm like, you have to watch this. It's so good. It felt like I respected the first one so good. What do you think as a huge fan, right? I wanted to see what a huge fan thought of it, that knows every detail, right? Like I would be with Lord of the Rings. And he was like, that was so good, Zollin. He's like, that was so good. I can't believe how good it was. And it just leaves you with a happy, upbeat feeling at the end of the first season. It was so good. If the second season is even half as good, it'll still be good. It was so well done, so fun. It's not going to be for everyone, okay? So if I'm recommending you go watch this right now, it's not going to be for everyone. It is a more niche thing, but if you're willing to give a little bit of a little fun adventure, and there's a little bit of physics don't really apply to things and stuff sometimes, which happens in anime all the time, you'll still thoroughly enjoy this. It's so well done. And they're such lovable characters that build, and it's a little bit they do a really good job of in animes, we need to talk about this now. We need to talk about this. This is really important. In animes, they can get very emotion-driven emotions out of you. Almost more so than live action. I don't know what it is with animes, but they just know how to do, the Japanese animators just know how to make the right hold just long enough for a few seconds to make it really feel passionate from the character. The actors portray that quite well in many scenes, in the way that the video camera men did the videos and the editors did it. Amazing job. It just all around. By the way, the music in this is insanely good. It's awesome. And that's another thing that really matters. Music. I say this about video games all the time. 50% of video games is music. The other is the gameplay. Is it fun? Is it not broken? Is it working? I think TV shows and movies is the same thing. I think iconic music is so important. And there's some theme songs in this that I'm like singing all the time now because they're just so good. And it does have a little bit of the Pirates of the Caribbean feel, but not entirely because it's more based off the, you know, the manga, right? The original person who did this, here's another big thing. Here's a big point that I think is so important for us all to realize is the original creator of the manga and who's been leading the anime for a long time, he said when he sold it to Netflix, he said he wanted to keep creator rights to be able to oversee what they do. This is really important, guys. If you're a creator of some book or story, you need to stop just selling the rights to things, okay? I would have been really awesome if, personally, I would say if someone in the Tolkien estate or anybody would have like kind of overseen what was happening with the Rings of Power, right? Because again, there's parts that were great. There were parts that I really enjoyed. There were made up parts that I enjoyed. And then there was stuff that I really didn't like. And then there was stuff they took that was a direct thing we know from Tolkien and flipped it on its face, right? The complete opposite. And that is, I find that disrespectful, right? To any creator of a story. No matter when they created it, right? This is for anything. I don't care if it was created back in the 1910s, 30s, 50s, back written in a play, you know, in a, you know, Shakespeare and, you know, whatever year, something written in the 1800s. I don't care when it was made. You need to respect the literature, right? You can't just be like, oh, well, we're just going to change this because we don't think this is right for today. It's like, well, that's not, you shouldn't do that. That's not how you should be done if you're trying to make it real. If you want to take something and say, well, we're going to completely redo it from our own style of story, we're going to rewrite it. Okay, then tell us that. Don't act like it's going to be a perfect adaptation, right? But this was really good. And again, if you know other animes like Cowboy Bebop, a lot of people love that anime. I've watched some of it. It is good. It's not really like my favorite thing ever, but it's still really entertaining and fun, and I can see why people love the characters. Anime characters are very lovable. They're really, you know, they really grow on you. Kind of like a good TV series, right? You really start almost like you're so invested in that character, right? The Cowboy Bebop kind of flopped because they didn't follow the original source material good enough, and they added a lot of their own agendas and ideas into it. And again, there is a place for adding your own. If you're a movie creator, there's a place where you can do that, right? Like, you have the right to create whatever you want. But if you're going to take an adaptation of someone else's creation, anime, book, TV show, play, whatever it is, and they don't specifically, if they specifically tell you something about a character and then you ignore that and switch it to something totally different, that's where I think it'll fail, right? Because no one likes that, the original things, and you might not even get people who are new audience that'll like that, right? It just might not feel right because the character is being rewritten. They didn't do that with this. It was so good. So again, highly recommend trying it out. And again, I always had Netflix. I canceled it for a while because a lot of stuff I didn't really like that they were doing with things, and the price kept going up, right? But with this one, it's worth maybe 1 month just to watch this series because it's really well done. And I would love it if we could show the big companies that when they do it right and they just let the producers produce, or they let someone keep the rights to overlook it. So back to the original writer of this, which I do not remember his name right now, but he's very famous, who wrote the manga and helped lead the anime. He actually had them reshoot a few scenes that he didn't really like, and then he loved it. He loved what they did, and then they put it out. So like, it was really, really cool, right? Like, I think even, you know, J.R.R. Martin with Game of Thrones even was a little bit disappointed he didn't have a little bit more control over the last season, because I don't think he did at that point, from what I remember. I don't know, you guys leave me a comment. What do you remember of that? But this was just, it was just so good, you guys. It was so good I had to make a blog video and talk about it because I thought it was cool, and I just, you know, these actors, they all really love their part. You can tell most of them are actually anime fans. Especially the girl, Nami. I've heard her in a couple different talk things, and she's like spouting out information that she wouldn't be able to just rehearse. It was obviously she was a fan of different animes and shows. So it's neat to see that. Also, all of their characters, the way they were looked, dressed, everything about them, their background, the universe of One Piece is very many different backgrounds of people. Like in the anime, they all look different, whether it be skin tone, where they what culture they're from, their hats, everything. That's why they look so different. So before you think it's other reasons, it's not. It's because this is how they originally were in the anime and manga. And it's really well done. I just love the fact that they respect it. I think respecting what the authors originally said is good. Because if you want to change something, or if you want to make something where it has a lot more different backgrounds or something, just write a new story that makes sense with that, right? Don't take someone's original writing and change it. That's how I feel on that. So, again, there's always a little bit of room for interpretation. Of course, I get that. But I think that most characters, their personality, exactly how they look, if it's all described by the original author, you should stick to the original author if you're trying to make an adaptation of a book or a manga or a whatever it is, cartoon, whatever you're doing, anime. It should still match what the original author had in mind, because that was his story, his creation, right? So I think I've talked about that about how much as I want, but I just thought it was so cool. I had to do a little blog video and talk about it, because it encouraged my heart that we can have good stuff come out of our media again that respects something original. Again, this was all written back 90s or pre that, and the animes when they started coming out, and it was neat to see a respected version of something that didn't have anyone's views, points of any side. And this is not just a jab at one political side. I talk about anything, anywhere in the world, any whatever views or anything, because it just, when we watch things, we want to escape and not have to deal with our real world problems when we watch it. We don't want to constantly be told, oh, these are all the issues we have in life. We know, we deal with those each day. We all know about them. We try our best to fix whatever issues are there, but we don't want to see them in the thing we're trying to take a break from it, right? Because that's a way to go crazy, right? If you're having the same problems in your face every single second. So it was really positive. And one thing I'd like to talk about anime to finish this up is anime, again, like I was saying, emotionally, can just catch something that usually live action can't. And this live action did that quite well between the music and the acting and the way they filmed it. It felt a lot like anime. It usually has really good music, good acting, and the way they draw it, right, in the shot, because it's all usually drawn or digitally done with anime or mangas on a book. Mangas are usually storybooks, right? If you don't know what those are, I mentioned what anime was, but it's just so encouraging to me, you guys. Again, leave your comments. What do you think? Have you watched it yet? If you like pirates and you like a little action with maybe a tiny bit of superpowers, that's all I'll say without spoilers. This is really, really good, and I'm very excited about it. And again, I am very impressed that Netflix just let them do their own thing and do an exact thing. And it just goes to show you that you can make an adaptation that is super close to the original content and people will want it. They're making buku bucks on this thing compared to stuff when they usually change stuff. You don't have to be like, oh, well, we won't make as much money if we do an exact, live action to the original cartoon. That's not true. That has been proven wrong time and time again. If you make a live action that's really good with just a slight realistic adjustments for live action and then follows the original story, you are going to make a lot of money. And that's just been proven over and over in the last 20 years with this. And it's proven if you do it the opposite way, you don't make as much money and people get grumpy and all the original people are mad at you, right? That's just how it goes. But we're not happy here. And one thing I love about Luffy and anime characters is they usually emotionally, I was talking about, their personalities are usually extreme, okay? So Luffy is always happy and always smiling, which my friends keep pointing that out, that I do that too. So, and yes, I'm just enjoying myself when I make these videos. I'm not putting it on. I always like to smile, and that's just how I do it. And I'm always loud and stuff like that. So again, I'm not as, no offense to Luffy, but his character is a little bit dumb sometimes. You'll see right off the bat. I'm not that, but I've had a lot of people in my church and my friends and you guys, my subscribers, be like, Zollin, you're always smiling, you're always happy, you're so upbeat. And it's like, you know what? That is what I try to do. I have seen the hard times of life too. You might not believe it, but since I'm so happy, but I think sometimes when you've seen hard things and you've been really close to issues or problems in your life, it really helps you have a perspective on life and remember to cherish all the good things, which anime usually does a really good job of, and this TV show did a fantastic job of that to help bring you those feelings. Also, I don't know if you can't ever see with my glasses, but I actually have a scar in almost the exact same spot as Luffy does on his face right there. So look, I thought this my family just put this out yesterday. He's got that scar right on his left cheek. Technically mine's on the right though, but I also have right here. And a lot of people think it's from football, but it's actually because I fell when I was a very young child and hit tile and it right there. And the way he gets his scar is a little different. But I just thought that was kind of funny. So, but it's actually kind of funny because my family are pointing out, they're like, you're really loud and laugh and smile like him all the time. You're always happy no matter what's happening. And yet he looks like my one cousin, the actual character, which me and my cousin are really close. So it's like, he's got like a mix of our personalities, and our looks. But, anyway, so anyway, it's a lot of fun. It's always kind of fun to have little things like that. But thanks again for listening. I don't want to just blab on forever. Trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to tell you guys. That was about it. So I just think it's really cool how they project the personalities of it into these real life how they acted like the animes, where they're a little more extreme on their personalities and stuff. Again, I'm not quite as extreme as any of these characters, obviously, but I am trying to always be happy and smiling the best I can in life. So stay positive, guys. Stay happy out there. Gives me hope for the future of media and stuff, that it doesn't always have to be we take an original thing and we just completely change it to whatever someone's viewpoint is or put in ideologies or whatever and stuff. You make the adaptation according to what the original person did to the best of your ability, and then it's going to hit it off. And if you want to make a video again, like I said, or a series that talks about someone's viewpoint, or someone wants to do that, just do that. Just do it separate. Don't take an original thing and rewrite it, right? Because again, in Rings of Power, I felt personally, you guys leave your comments, what did you think? And be civil, guys, in the comments. Don't go crazy. Don't say really rude or, upsetting things about stuff. Just really talk about it, like a kind conversation, even if you agree to disagree. But like, what is the Rings of Power, there are definitely parts that I enjoyed, but unfortunately I felt like a lot of things were like they had names and locations and they put them in. It just, to me, felt like a fantasy series. It didn't feel like Lord of the Rings, except for the fact that we had the names that Tolkien gave us of people and the names of locations. Now, granted, one thing in the Rings of Power I really did like was the locations. I thought that Numenor looked fantastic, and Lindon and Moria. Would like to see more of Moria, but those looked great. And Eregion. Those locations, they look fantastic. But again, so much stuff was changed, and I know they had to pick a main character, but there's the storylines are all not any storylines that really Tolkien wrote. They're like little clips, and then they matched their own story into basically made a fantasy adventure. It's almost a fan fiction, okay? Let's be honest. The Rings of Power is almost a fan fiction, right? Okay, this one is not. This is based off the original information by the original world designer and out of his head. Okay, so again, that gives me hope that we could get another Lord of the Rings adaptation that's like this. Maybe the War of the Rohirrim will be this good. I'll be super stoked. Right? I'm always a glass half full kind of guy. You know me. I always try to be positive here on this channel. So thank you again for being here today. Thank you to my wonderful Patreons here. Oh, you know what? I didn't update this one right. This one's old. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much. I've got a wonderful Royal Guard there too, and the other one, but he wants to be anonymous anyway. I will see you guys all in the next episodes of Voice of the Rings. Thanks so much for watching, and again, I highly recommend this show if you want to see it. Again, if you like pirates, it's a good one. And adventures, and gosh, the music was so good too, and all the actors were good. And it was just really fun to watch. It was really, really good. Again, all the things that are the struggles of this world in One Piece are the struggles you deal with. That's another thing, right? Same thing with the Rings of Power. If they're going to have struggles, make it struggles that Tolkien wrote about, right? Not struggles of real life that they're putting into the world subtly, right? We don't need that. Go make that a separate show. All right. Anyway, I just got so much hope for the future, guys, with this one. I didn't think I'd ever see an anime like adaptation that was that good, or anything like from a book or manga or something. At least for the last like 15 years. There's been some good things. I'm not saying there hasn't. There's been some good shows. But it's like few and far between. So it was really encouraging to see when that was like, that is an adaptation. Yes, that is what I like. Slight changes, but they're all for the better for a live action. And then wonderful music. Actors that fit the part, look just like the characters from the original, how the original guy described them, right? It's so wonderful. I look forward to seeing more stuff like that in the future. I'm not going to hold my breath, but you know what? If we all watch this and they make, quadruple the money they made from other things that they may have changed based on what they thought they should change in the past that weren't as good, they might go, maybe we should do that more often. And this is a shout out to everyone who's created their own things. If you're going to sell the rights to your story for a studio to make an adaptation, TV show, movie, whatever it is, I highly recommend that you have oversight with it and you keep legal rights to be able to say, no, I don't like that, so change it. You know what I'm saying? I really think that's so important today. Really do. And I have hope for the Tolkien, enterprises, estate, that I think they still really do care about their grandfather's legacy for the people who are still in charge. I think that it'll be good. So I'm rooting for them. Glass half full for me. All right, guys. We'll see you all in the next episodes of Voice of the Ring. Stay happy, my friends. I'll see you.